Right. Let's talk about this guy, okay? This guy, Shedeur Sanders. All right, welcome to Go Pack Go All Day. Like, comment, and subscribe. And let's talk about Shedeur Sanders, okay? Shedeur Sanders, he really made this 2025 draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin very entertaining. And here's why. First of all, the guy didn't even show up to Green Bay. So if he was going to get drafted in the first round, he wasn't even there. Okay? And so he was supposed to supposedly be drafted in the first round, maybe the first 10 within the draft. All the projections, all the mock drafts were predicting him to be there. But he obviously just slid through and ended up being drafted in the 5th round by the same team that everybody thought they were going to draft in the first round. So the Cleveland Brownies go in and boost up their team in all kinds of other areas. They even drafted another quarterback before Shedeur Sanders and eventually drafted Shedeur Sanders. So pre-draft meetings, I heard that he completely failed interviews, and he had this perceived entitlement because his father is Deion Sanders, had all kinds of celebrity appearances when he was playing for Colorado. And if you even look at his stats, okay, what record did he really break? You know, he did have over 4,000 passing yards. He did have 37 touchdowns, but he had 10 interceptions his final year. The year before that, 27 touchdowns and 3 interceptions. So interceptions are not a good thing in this league, but then again, it is the college level. And how will his ability translate to the NFL? And first of all, will he even be a starting quarterback in the NFL? That's a huge question. But from what I also heard is that Shedeur Sanders, his father, I guess, made the statement that whichever team that Shedeur Sanders lands on is the team that eventually Deion Sanders will become the head coach for. Apparently, that's what I heard. I don't know if it's true. That's what I heard. And so his father has had all kinds of influence in how he was drafted. And he has a decent build. You know, he's 6'2", 215 pounds. He's only 23 years young. That kind of gives him somewhat of an edge in that kind of sense. But ultimately, you know, the Cleveland Brownies, they go out and they draft him. On the ESPN depth chart, he's not even listed. So apparently ESPN has him as a fifth string quarterback. But on Our Lads, another website, they have Shedeur Sanders listed as a 4th string quarterback, with Deshaun Watson as the 5th string quarterback, showing Joe Flacco, the really old quarterback, as the 1st string. And then behind that, you have Kenny Pickett and Gabriel Dillon. So Gabriel Dillon was drafted before Sanders. And I want to look up his stats. So Gabriel Dillon, coming from Oregon, and Oregon actually went pretty far in the playoffs. So that made a whole lot of sense for any team in the NFL to go out and draft Dillon Gabriel. So Dillon Gabriel, his stats were 30 touchdowns and 6 interceptions, but he probably had much tougher opponents. He only played 1 season with Oregon. He played for a couple other seasons before, several seasons before that. So he played a total of 6 seasons in the college level. He's only 24 years young. He's 6 foot, 200 pounds. So that being said, you know, Yeah, Shedeur Sanders has slightly better numbers, but do you really want to bring controversy to a football team? All these football teams have the end goal of to make it to the playoffs, make it to the Super Bowl, and try to win a Super Bowl. Okay? And so Shedeur Sanders is one of those guys that's going to bring a whole lot of cameras to the team. So it's almost like an automatic Hard Knocks episode every single day that this kid is on the team. And another point is that the Cleveland Brownies will probably not keep all 5 of these quarterbacks, okay? They're going to try them out and try to filter out and see which quarterbacks they ultimately want to go with. I think that, they're going to probably have 2 of them at least on their 53-man roster. And maybe they keep whoever doesn't get picked up by another team as a third-string quarterback. But the other 2 of the 5 will probably end up on a different team. So there might be a chance that Shedeur Sanders doesn't even stay on the team, potentially. Or, the Brownies just straight up choose 2 of the 5 quarterbacks, and maybe one of them is Shedeur Sanders. Maybe they go with the 2 rookies. But do they really want to do that? That's a huge question there. Go with 2 rookies without any NFL experience at all and see how it goes. And maybe you get to keep Joe Flacco as your third string quarterback. That might be a good route to take. But Shedeur Sanders, he drops to the 5th round. And a lot of people were making a big deal about it. A lot of people were calling it racism. But ultimately, I think that people just teams didn't want the controversy that comes with it, They don't want distractions for their football team. They want to be able to make it to the Super Bowl and win the Super Bowl. Deion Sanders had a great, career in the NFL. And he's going to continue to be the Colorado head coach, at least for the time being. But Shedeur Sanders, the big question is, will he be a starting QB or will he be a backup QB? Will he stay on the Brownies or will he move on to another team? So things are going to be really interesting. I personally loved watching the draft. I was in a chat room of some sort, a streaming room of a bunch of people that were talking about the draft as it was unfolding. And then people would always say, oh, here it goes. Here goes Shedeur Sanders going to the Raiders or to the Steelers. And the Brownies, they didn't pick him until the 5th round. That was hilarious, but actually really entertaining to watch. And some people thought that, maybe this was done to just lift the ratings up because people just kept watching. The NFL draft was very lengthy. It was 3 hours long for the first round. And it was about just as long for the second and third rounds. And then the final rounds were extremely long. But it kept people watching the draft in Green Bay, Wisconsin, just to see where and when Shedeur Sanders lands in this draft. But Shedeur Sanders, he did get drafted. It's not like he didn't get drafted. So he's still, he's on the Cleveland Brownies. Cleveland Brownies are looking pretty good, honestly. They picked some great picks before Shedeur Sanders. So they should be a solid team. Maybe not right away, but in the future, they should be a really good team. And they re-signed their guy, Myles Garrett, one of the top defensive linemen in this league. And should be very entertaining to see what happens next. I hope Shedeur Sanders has a fun and successful career in the NFL, but you never know what can happen. But it will be highly entertaining to see what happens. So Shedeur Sanders, welcome to the NFL. Looking forward to seeing what happens next. It's kind of like a reality show at this point. And I'm just loving it. So all I got to say is all I got to say. Hit that like, comment, and subscribe buttons, and go Pack Go all day. Back to green, baby. Go Pack Go all day.
Listen up. Subscribe to Go Pack Go all day. And that's the bottom line, because Stone Cold said so.
All right, I almost forgot. Just a couple other things, okay? There was a phone call, a prank call, where this kid, I guess it was a son of another team, I guess the son of the Atlanta Falcons head coach or somebody over there, or GM, called up Shedeur Sanders and had to let him know that, hey, we were thinking about drafting you for the Raiders, but you're just going to have to keep watching and waiting. Not this time. Kind of humorous, but at the same time, not very respectful, you know? If you're in the draft and somebody prank called you, would you really want to be prank called while you're trying to get drafted in the NFL? I don't think so. I don't think so. But also another thing is that he didn't even showcase what he can do in the combine. So if anybody tried to doubt this kid, and he actually showcased what he could do in the combine, he basically pulled a Caleb Williams and decided not to do anything. He just assumed that everybody thought he was this great quarterback, but ultimately, you know, he did get drafted, and we'll see what he can do. We'll see if he, you know, ends up on a team somewhere. And good luck. Welcome to the NFL.